My name is Lucas Reinhardt. I am 37 years old, and for the last 4 years, I have been the head of financial 0.077 seconds analytics at a mid-sized European technology firm preparing for its most important funding round. I am not 0.1515 seconds charismatic. I do not dominate rooms. I am the person executives rely on when they want the truth, not reassurance. 0.2424 seconds. Until that morning, I believed that was enough. The betrayal revealed itself not as a dramatic act, but as a sentence. 0.333 seconds spoken calmly in a boardroom designed to erase doubt. We were on the top floor of our Frankfurt headquarters. Glass walls 0.4242 seconds overlooking the river, the kind of view meant to make power feel natural. The board sat around a long table, quiet, 0.5050 seconds attentive. At the head stood Martin Kessler, our CFO, recently hired, 0.5555 seconds expensively packaged and universally admired. He clicked to the next slide and said, "When I rebuilt our financial 1.31 minute 3 seconds forecasting framework, my priority was restoring discipline to our cash flow projections." The words hit before the 11 minute 11 seconds meaning did. Rebuilt my framework. I stared at the screen at a cash runway 181 minute 18 seconds chart. I had personally recalculated dozens of times and felt a hollow sensation spread through my chest. That 1261 minute 26 seconds model was not his work. It was the product of 11 months of my life. I had inherited a mess of conflicting 1.341 minute 34 second spreadsheets, unreliable revenue assumptions, and optimistic lies dressed as forecasts. I rebuilt everything from scratch. Revenue recognition logic, 1.441 minute 44 seconds cohort decay, payment delays, covenant sensitivity, liquidity triggers. I argued with sales, fought with 1.521 minute 52 seconds operations, and rewrote assumptions no one wanted questioned. I was the one who told the CEO uncomfortable truths when 2 minutes optimism was easier. Martin joined 6 months ago, introduced as the grown-up we supposedly needed. He was polished, 2.092 minutes, 9 seconds confident, and fluent in board language. 212 minutes, 11 seconds. From the beginning, he positioned himself as the translator between numbers and strategy. I told myself that was fine. I believed contribution would 2.202 minutes, 20 seconds be visible. As Martin continued, board members nodded. One of the investors leaned forward, clearly impressed. 272 minutes, 27 seconds. Martin spoke in conclusions, not mechanics. He showed confidence without showing doubt. He did not mention my 352 minutes, 35 seconds, team. He did not mention me. When a board member asked how resilient the forecast was under delayed receivables, 2.422 minutes, 42 seconds, Martin answered without hesitation. 2.442 minutes, 44 seconds. We've built in conservative buffers. I'm comfortable. Built. Comfortable. The language of ownership. I felt heat rise. 2,532 minutes, 53 seconds behind my eyes, but my face stayed still. I looked briefly at the CEO, 2,582 minutes, 58 seconds, expecting some correction, some acknowledgement. He was smiling, proud. 3.033 minutes, 3 seconds. In that moment, I understood the hierarchy more clearly than I ever had. After the meeting, people stood, 3.103 minutes, 10 seconds, chatted, congratulated Martin. As he passed me, he placed a hand on my shoulder and said quietly, "Great, 3.173 minutes, 17 seconds support on this, Lucas." Support, not architect, not author, support. I nodded 3.243 minutes, 24 seconds because I hadn't yet accepted what had happened. In the restroom, staring at my reflection, I felt something shift. This 313 minutes, 31 seconds was not a misunderstanding. Over the past weeks, Martin had slowly pushed me out of board prep, asked for cleaner. 3.393 minutes, 39 seconds versions of my work insisted on presenting a loan for consistency. I had rationalized it as politics. Standing there, tie loosened, pulse still racing. 3.493 minutes, 49 seconds. I finally named it for what it was, 3.523 minutes, 52 seconds eraser. He wasn't stealing my work out of laziness. He was consolidating power before the funding closed. And if I 3.5593 minutes, 59 seconds stayed silent, I would be written out without noise or scandal. Back at my desk, surrounded by analysts who trusted 4074 minutes, 7 seconds me, I felt the weight of responsibility collide with anger. I had a mortgage, a reputation built on precision, a team whose careers were tied to mine. 4194 minutes, 19 seconds, revenge, if I chose it, could not be emotional. It had to be structural. I opened the model again and scrolled 4274 minutes, 27 seconds through the Assumptions tab. Everything was solid, painfully honest, and suddenly I understood the irony. For 354 minutes, 35 seconds, same discipline that made the model trustworthy also made it dangerous in the wrong hands. Martin wanted 424 minutes, 42 seconds ownership. Fine. Ownership meant accountability. If he wanted the numbers to represent him, then he would also, 4/5 on 14 minutes, 51 seconds, inherit their consequences. I wasn't going to shout. I wasn't going to accuse. I wasn't going to warn him anymore. I closed my laptop slowly, 5/25 minutes, 2 seconds, feeling an unexpected calm settle in. In that moment, I realized something irreversible had begun. Not because I 5/1 15 minutes, 11 seconds wanted revenge, but because the system no longer allowed neutrality. The numbers were already moving. All I had, 5/195 minutes, 19 seconds, to decide was whether I would stand in their way or step aside and let them do what they were designed to do. For 5/275 minutes, 27 seconds, several days after that board meeting, I did exactly what was expected of me, and that normality was the hardest part too. 5/355 minutes, 35 seconds maintain. I arrived early, reviewed reports, answered questions with the same calm precision I always had, and 5/435 minutes, 43 seconds, nodded when Martin spoke, as if nothing fundamental had shifted. Inside, though, my thoughts were looping relentlessly. 5/5 15 minutes, 51 seconds. Part of me still searched for an innocent explanation, some alternative narrative where this was a misunderstanding that could be resolved quietly. That part of me was afraid. 6:36 minutes, 3 seconds, afraid of losing my position, my credibility, the stability I had built through discipline rather than politics. 6:106 minutes, 10 seconds. Another part, colder and sharper. 6:136 minutes, 13 seconds. Replayed Martin's language again and again, not as an emotional wound, but as evidence. He had not misspoken. He had claimed ownership deliberately. 6,236 minutes, 23 seconds publicly, and without hesitation. 6,266 minutes, 26 seconds. Planning revenge was not something I embraced willingly. It crept in through necessity. I knew confrontation would 6.336 minutes, 33 seconds fail. If I challenged him directly, he would deny, deflect, and frame me as territorial or insecure. The board would 6:16 minutes, 41 seconds believe him. They always believed the person who spoke their language fluently. My motivation crystallized 6:86 minutes, 48 seconds slowly. If he wanted power through the numbers, then the numbers would be the only arena where truth could not be 6,556 minutes, 55 seconds negotiated. But I was terrified of crossing the line between exposure and sabotage. I had built the financial 7:27 minutes, 2-second system to protect the company, not to weaponize it. Every potential move carried collateral risk. If liquidity 7:97 minutes, 9 seconds tightened or forecasts cracked, real people would suffer. That moral weight pressed on me constantly, even at home. 7,187 minutes, 18 seconds, where my partner noticed my silence and asked questions I avoided answering. I started by observing instead of acting. 7,257 minutes, 25 seconds. I mapped Martin's decision-making patterns, noting where he simplified assumptions, where he avoided uncomfortable scenarios. He disliked 7,347 minutes, 34 seconds volatility, and preferred point estimates that looked decisive. He trusted summaries more than mechanics. That 7,417 minutes, 41 seconds preference became my first opening. When he asked for a revised forecast deck for an upcoming investor update, he 7,487 minutes, 48 seconds requested something clean, high-level, no unnecessary complexity. In the past, I would have pushed back, insisted on 7,567 minutes, 56 seconds, showing ranges and sensitivities. This time I asked clarifying questions instead. Which assumptions should remain 8,038 minutes, 3 seconds fixed? Which risks were considered immaterial? He answered vaguely, 8,088 minutes, 8 seconds impatiently, and told me to use the latest approved baseline. That ambiguity was dangerous, but it was also 8,168 minutes, 16 seconds documented. I prepared exactly what he requested, a forecast that was technically accurate, internally consistent, and stripped of the early 8,248 minutes, 24 seconds warning signals I had previously insisted on highlighting. I added quiet footnotes referencing excluded 8,318 minutes, 31 second sensitivities, not to alert him, but to preserve traceability. Sending that file felt like stepping onto thin ice. I was 8,398 minutes, 39 seconds, taking my first risk by omission rather than action. The first obstacle came from my own team. One of my senior 8,468 minutes, 46 seconds analysts questioned the optimism baked into the receivables timing and asked whether we should escalate the risk. I hesitated longer than I should have, 8,558 minutes, 55 seconds, telling her no felt like betrayal of my own standards. I compromised. 9,009 minutes, instructing her to run the stress cases, but not circulate them unless requested. 9,059 minutes, 5 seconds. That decision haunted me. I knew I was beginning to compartmentalize ethics. 9,109 minutes, 10 seconds. And once you do that, it's difficult to stop. The next test came during a prep call with Martin and the CEO. An investor had asked about downside 9.199 minutes, 19 seconds exposure under delayed enterprise renewals. Martin answered confidently, 9.249 minutes, 24 second citing ratios I knew were fragile. He glanced at me on the call, a silent prompt to confirm. I felt my pulse, 9.329 minutes, 32 seconds, spike. This was the moment where I could intervene, soften the narrative, or correct the framing. Instead, I said 9,409 minutes, 40 seconds that aligns with the assumptions in the current approved model. It was true. It was also a retreat. After the call, 9,479 minutes, 47 seconds ended, I sat alone in the conference room staring at the blank screen. 9,519 minutes, 51 seconds, feeling a wave of guilt crash over me. I went back to my desk and reran the internal stress scenarios. The margin 9,599 minutes, 59 seconds was thinner than the board realized, but still technically compliant for now. 10,0410 minutes, 4 seconds. That word followed me everywhere. The complication I hadn't anticipated arrived quietly. Operations flagged a 10.1210 minutes, 12 seconds delay with a major client, pushing a large payment into the next quarter. Not catastrophic on its own, but enough to test the assumptions Martin had 10.2110 minutes, 21 seconds embraced. I updated the internal model and sent Martin a brief note. He replied hours later with a single line. Not 10.2910 minutes. 29 seconds material for external messaging. That dismissal told me everything. He wasn't unaware. He was choosing the narrative. 10:38:10 minutes, 38 seconds. That night, lying awake, I realized I had crossed a threshold. I was no longer deciding whether to act. I was deciding 10:46:10 minutes, 46 seconds so far. This would go before the system forced a reckoning. The small success was subtle, but undeniable. Martin had 10:53:10 minutes, 53 seconds, publicly committed himself to a version of reality that required constant alignment to remain intact. He didn't 11:11 minutes know it yet, but he had stepped onto a path where every simplification increased his exposure. As I stared at 11:08:11 minutes, 8 seconds, the ceiling in the dark, I understood that the plan was no longer theoretical. 11:13:11 minutes, 13 seconds. The numbers were moving forward without waiting for my conscience to catch up. 11:17:11 minutes, 17 seconds, and whatever happened next would not be reversible. The conflict stopped being theoretical the week the financing 11:24:11 minutes, 24 seconds. Timeline was moved forward. What had been a slow tightening suddenly became a countdown, and every decision Martin. 11:31:11 minutes, 31 seconds made grew sharper, riskier. He began bypassing normal review cycles, asking for numbers faster, cleaner, more decisive. I felt the shift immediately. 11:42:11 minutes, 42 seconds. My inbox filled with late-night requests marked urgent, forecasts needed by morning, summaries needed investor 11.50:11 minutes, 50 seconds ready. Each request carried an unspoken expectation. Remove friction, remove doubt, remove anything that complicated 11.58:11 minutes, 58 seconds the story he was selling. My internal conflict intensified. I was no longer just withholding nuance. I was watching 12.06 learn 12 minutes, 6 seconds him stack assumptions on top of each other, building a structure that looked solid only if nothing unexpected. 12.113 12 minutes, 13 seconds happened. And something unexpected always happens. The moral dilemma became constant. If I intervened too strongly, I would expose the dynamic prematurely. 12.24 12 minutes, 24 seconds, and likely be sidelined before anything could be corrected. If I stayed silent, 12.29 12 minutes, 29 seconds, the consequences would grow beyond anyone's control. I told myself I was protecting the company by documenting everything, by keeping the internal 12:38 12 minutes, 38 seconds model honest, even if the external narrative wasn't. It felt like a rationalization, and that scared me more, 12:45 12 minutes, 45 seconds, than the risk itself. The first real shock came from my team. One afternoon, 12:50 12 minutes, 50 seconds, my senior analyst asked to speak privately. She closed the door and showed me an email from Martin. He had asked her directly for a revised 12:58 12 minutes, 58 seconds forecast instructing her to smooth volatility and adjust timing assumptions to align with strategic messaging. It, 13:07 minutes, 7 seconds, was the first time I saw him cross from aggressive framing into explicit manipulation. My stomach dropped. This 13 minutes, 15 seconds wasn't just about credit anymore. This was about integrity and about pulling my team into something they didn't understand. I told her not to respond and forwarded the email to myself, 13:26 minutes, 26 seconds, saving it in a folder I had quietly begun maintaining. The pressure mounted from above as well. The CEO started 13:33 minutes, 33 seconds, asking pointed questions about whether our numbers were too conservative compared to peers. Martin had clearly been shaping expectations. In meetings, 13:43 minutes, 43 seconds, I noticed how often my clarifications were redirected or summarized by him before landing with the board. I felt myself being slowly erased in real time. 13:54 minutes, 54 seconds. My role reduced to a technical validator of decisions I wasn't allowed to influence. Then came the twist I hadn't. 14:02 minutes, 2 seconds, anticipated. The lead investor requested a direct diligence session with the FP&A function, not just with Martin. 14:09 minutes, 9 seconds. Officially, it was about transparency. 14:12 minutes, 12 seconds. Unofficially, it meant they sensed something misaligned. Martin tried to delay it, citing scheduling issues, but 14:19 minutes, 19 seconds, the request stood. Suddenly, I was back in the room. The diligence session was tense but polite. The investor asked 14:27 minutes, 27 seconds precise questions, not about growth narratives, but about mechanics, cash conversion, receivables, aging, trigger 14:35 minutes, 35 seconds thresholds. Martin answered first confidently. When he deferred to me, I answered carefully, referencing approved 14:43 minutes, 43 seconds assumptions, never contradicting him directly, but never embellishing either. 14:48 minutes, 48 seconds. I could feel the room recalibrating. The investor didn't challenge us, but his silence changed. After the call, Martin. 14:55 minutes, 55 seconds, cornered me in the hallway. "You need to be aligned," he said, voice low. "We can't afford mixed signals." I met his 15 minutes, 4 seconds eyes and replied, "I am aligned with what has been approved." It was the first time I saw uncertainty flicker 15 minutes, 12 seconds across his face. The psychological pressure became unbearable. I stopped sleeping. Every scenario played out in my head. Intervention, exposure, 15 minutes, 24 seconds, collapse. I questioned my own motives constantly. Was this still about protecting the system, or had it become 15 minutes, 31 seconds personal? The answer terrified me. It was both. The decisive moment arrived through a routine internal report. A 15 minutes, 40 seconds variance breached an internal liquidity trigger. Not yet a public covenant, but close enough to demand escalation under. 15 minutes, 48 seconds hour policies. I flagged it in the internal model and notified Martin. He responded by instructing accounting to 15 minutes, 56 seconds, reclassify certain items as timing differences, pushing the issue just far enough to avoid disclosure. That 16 minutes, 4 seconds instruction crossed the line I could no longer rationalize. It wasn't interpretation, it was concealment, and 16 minutes, 11 seconds it was documented. I felt a strange calm settle over me as I realized the plan had shifted beyond my control. The 16 minutes, 20-second system was now forcing a confrontation whether I wanted it or not. I documented everything meticulously and looped in 16 minutes, 28 seconds legal under the pretext of seeking guidance on classification policy. Their response was cautious but clear. Adhere 16 minutes, 36 seconds strictly to escalation protocols. When Martin doubled down in writing, 16 minutes, 41 seconds, asserting his authority, I understood the magnitude of the moment. Everything was now at risk. The deal, the company, 16 minutes, 49 seconds, my career, my sense of self. Sitting alone in the office late that night, city lights flickering beyond the glass, 16 minutes, 58 seconds. I knew the next step would determine not just the outcome of this conflict, but who would be held responsible when the numbers finally refused to bend any 17 minutes, 6 seconds further. The moment the audit committee requested an extraordinary session, I understood that the machinery I had been 17 minutes, 13 seconds carefully observing was finally turning on its own. The invitation arrived early in the morning, copied to legal, 17 minutes, 21 seconds, accounting, the CEO, Martin, and me. Its wording neutral but unmistakable in intent. A governance alignment review. 17 minutes, 30 seconds, ahead of the financing close, I stared at the screen for a long time before closing my laptop, feeling a mix of dread and relief settle in my chest. 17 minutes, 40 seconds. This was no longer something I could stop quietly. The night before the meeting, I barely slept. I kept thinking about my team, about the deals that 17 minutes, 48 seconds would stall, about the invisible line between letting truth surface and actively pulling it into the light. I 117 minutes, 56 seconds told myself I hadn't engineered this. I had simply refused to falsify reality. 18 minutes, 1 second. Still, the weight of what was coming pressed down on me. The morning of the meeting, the office felt tense in a way I had never experienced before. 18 minutes, 10 seconds. Conversations were hushed, emails clipped and formal. Martin was unusually silent, his confidence replaced by a 18 minutes, 18 seconds rigid focus that bordered on anger. When we entered the conference room, the atmosphere was clinical. No small talk. 18 minutes, 26 seconds, no pleasantries. The chair opened by outlining the scope, recent classification decisions, assumption approvals, and alignment between 18 minutes, 34 seconds internal risk reporting, and external representations. I had prepared a deck at Martin's request, but following 18 minutes, 42 seconds legal's guidance, I had appended a detailed appendix tracing every key assumption to an explicit approval. 18 minutes, 49 seconds time-stamped and sourced. No accusations, just structure. As questions began, 18 minutes, 55 seconds. Martin spoke first, framing decisions as judgment calls under pressure. I listened, heart pounding, knowing every 19 minutes, 2 seconds, sentence he spoke would bind him further to the record. When the committee turned to me, I answered only what was asked. 19 minutes, 10 seconds referencing documentation, policies, and emails. I avoided emotion. The risk here was not saying too much, not revealing 19 minutes, 18 seconds intent, but allowing facts to accumulate. The unexpected turn came when the external auditors joined 19 minutes, 25 seconds earlier than planned. They raised concerns about consistency between internal trigger reporting and external 19 minutes, 32 seconds disclosures. The room shifted. This was no longer an internal conversation. 19 minutes, 38 seconds. Martin was asked directly whether the assumptions used in investor materials matched those used for internal risk management. He hesitated, then said yes. 1948, 19 minutes, 48 seconds. I felt a chill run through me. When asked to confirm the traceability, I presented the appendix showing alignment 1955, 19 minutes, 55 seconds in form, but divergence in substance, all within the bounds of approved decisions.